this is a really important story to tell, and to understand this is particularly now, because as I was saying before, race is central to our story. Race, race, race. And a lot of people don't like that. And a lot of people don't want to hear about it.
Welcome to the End Game, our latest episode on race and sports. And we are going to discuss the Flintstones of Michigan State. And most people like Herman are going to think we're talking about Mateen Cleaves and the 2000 NCAA title. Actually, the Flintstones in Michigan State go back to the early 1950s in Don Coleman. Flint was a thriving automobile factory city and turned out many great athletes. Many of them were families that had migrated from the South during the Great Migration for jobs. Flint was a thriving city. And one of those guys is one of our guests today, Norm Bryant. Norm, how are you doing? Give us a wave there.
Good. Look here. Mateen Cleave's father played on a undefeated football team at Flint Northern. Mateen Cleave's father, his name was Herbert Cleaves. He was a great athlete.
And Mateen told me he was always a Michigan State fan. It was one of the reasons he went to Michigan State. Wow. But anyways, Norm turns 90 years old in August. So he goes back. He's our live link to the 50s. And then our other guest here is Jay Green, who's being inducted into the Greater Flint Sports Hall of Fame in March 22nd. In fact, I should mention here that Norm is not only in the Hall of Fame, he's the founder of the Greater Flint African American Sports Hall of Fame. Jay was a high school All-American at Flint. Which high school did you go to, Flint? Flint Northwestern Central. For you, right, Jay?
Central.
Yeah, that's right. Jay went to Central. And then also went to Michigan State, and it was an all-league in football and basketball. And if you were all-league in the Flint area, Norm will talk about this later, you were basically all-state. And then we have, of course, my co-host, Herman Bulls. Herman was the first black quarterback at his high school in Alabama. He went to West Point. Gary Steele, the first black letterman at West Point, recruited Herman when there weren't very many black cadets in those days in the early 70s. And then Herman's a retired colonel and one of the top executives in America at the JLL in Washington, D.C. And Herman was inducted into the Alabama Business Hall of Fame recently. One of only 5 African Americans. Is that right, Herman?
That's correct.
Yeah.
With Booker T. Washington being the first one. How about that?
And the first one's Booker T. Washington, right. Okay. So what we're going to do here, Norm had a barbershop for years and years in Flint. And so we're going to borrow from the barbershop theme of LeBron James' TV show. And of course, if you all saw Coming to America with Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall, you saw how they argued about boxing in the barbershop. We're not going to argue. We're just going to talk and explain how great and long the connection is between Flint and Michigan State. And so, Norm, you're the barber here for the early 1950 legends. The original Flintstone was Don Coleman. Don went to Michigan State from Flint, and he was Michigan State's first college football Hall of Famer, as well as first African-American All-American. Tell us about Don Coleman, Norm.
Don Coleman was one of the greatest linemen, All-Americans that came through the Big Ten. he was so good that they retired his number, and he couldn't even get a head coaching job back in his hometown in Flint. And they retired his number. He was that great. They wanted to retire him, and they wanted to bring him into the pro league, but they wanted to make him a linebacker. But he was a lineman by trade, he said. He didn't want to play linebacker.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the coaches brought him up to Michigan State and introduced him to Biggie Munn, and that's how it all started, right?
Yeah. But see, the thing of it is that when they first organized the Hall of Fame in Flint, they call it Greater Flint Area Hall of Fame, okay? Now, they did not elect not one black in that Hall of Fame when they had their first induction, okay? And I said to myself, we had 4 public high schools and 1 Catholic high school. We had 5 Class A high schools in the city of Flint, okay? And out of those 5 high schools, if you heard of the Super Bowl, out of the playing in the Super Bowl, we had 12 players from the Flint area come out playing Super Bowls. 9 of them were black coming from Flint schools. Something was wrong with that. I said, we got more talent than we ought to be inducting some of these black athletes. So I organized the Greater Flint African American Sports Hall of Fame. And do you know, it's a funny thing about going to the bank. You can't get no money from the bank if you don't have no collateral or some money in the bank. Now, before I organized the Black Hall of Fame, I didn't get no calls from the Greater Flint Area Hall of Fame. Now I get all kind of calls. If you guys got so-and-so and so-and-so in the Hall of Fame, I say, go on, look on our Facebook, you'll find out. And so I tell them all the time, look on the Facebook. But Flint had so much talent back in those days. Matter of fact, we had what you call a turkey day between the 2 Flint high schools. Flint Central. Central was on the south side, and Northern was on the north side of town. But Leroy Bowling, one of his greatest runs in the Turkey Day game, it was 1950, and the score was 13-13. He caught a pass and ran 79 yards, and I got to picture him watching the clock so he could see what the score was, and the score ended up 20-13.
Now, what would he have done if he had been in the stadium where they have the big teleprompter? He could have watched himself run into the.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me tell you. I'll back up a little bit here. Leroy Bolden and Ellis Duckett were Michigan State All-Americans, and when they played in the 1954 Rose Bowl, it was a lot of African American fans, particularly in the South, but throughout the country, kind of adopted Michigan State as their team because you didn't see black players in college football. And in the 1954 Rose Bowl, both Leroy Bolden and Ellis Duckett scored touchdowns. And today, as we're recording this, today is the day that Jesse Jackson, the great civil rights leader and also an athlete in his time at Illinois and North Carolina A&T. And I quote him extensively in Ray of Light. And one of the things he kind of pointed me down this road to understand was Jesse Jackson said, he emphasized to me the importance of black athletes simply being seen on television in a positive role. We're talking about 1954. And then particularly a black quarterback like Jimmy Ray in the 1965 and 66 seasons, in an era when positive role models were otherwise non-existent or portrayed negatively. Comment on that, Herman.
Well, first of all, I've had the opportunity to meet Reverend Jackson several times, and I can tell you any success that anyone from my generation has had in business, some of it is attributed to what he did as an individual. His oratorical skills are unmatched. Ronald Reagan was good, but he couldn't make him rhyme the way Jesse could, keep hope alive. And so from that, many of my professional colleagues have been making postings today. So just a tribute to Reverend Jackson for what he did. As we all know, the first Black national candidate for president, did great things there. And, Tom, in your stuff, I didn't realize that he had been a quarterback as well.
Yeah.
So, as we all know, athletics is about leadership. And we all know that quarterback position, Jimmy Ray, that you talk about so often, is the ultimate of the leaders on the field. And Jesse Jackson, I could have guessed if he played football, would have told you he probably was a quarterback because what he did for this nation, certainly being a disciple of Martin Luther King and having the ability on bringing his Rainbow Coalition together. And what was important about that is that it wasn't just Black people. Okay, he was looking for the disenfranchised, period, and making a movement in a nonviolent manner, as opposed to being on the streets. Jesse Jackson took it to the boardroom, and he did great things that has helped I know certainly helped me and my family, and probably helped all of us and our listeners that are there today.
Yeah, and Jesse said he was 12 years old when he watched that 1954 Rose Bowl and realized the impact of Michigan State. Let's back up a little here. Jay Green, talk about going into the Flint Hall of Fame, all these great athletes, and your enshrinement on March 22nd. What's it mean to you to be rubbing shoulders with these guys?
I think it's a huge honor. I've always been a person who has been big on the history of Flint and those that came before me. So with that being said, seeing a lot of the people that I grew up watching and a lot of people that I, grew up hearing about, so I was at the press conference the other day and I had saw Justice Thigpen Sr., who I hadn't seen in a while, who is, the first Black person to go to the NBA from Flint. So, again, the history that we have of all the great athletes, I think is amazing. And I think that there are a lot of athletes that still aren't even in there. So the fact that I was chosen to go in is, for me, I don't take it lightly.
Yes, and then as I said earlier, Jay was a great football, basketball player at Central, Parade All-American, Michigan State scholarship football player. But Herman, I want you to comment on this because you all know so much about leadership. Maybe Jay's most important role of his life is what he's doing right now. He's working with a lot of at-risk kids in Lansing.
It's
Okay.
good.
Yeah, and that is great. And I want to tell you guys, my mother moved to Flint, and I don't know if you guys know, and I don't know why I can remember it many years ago. Trumbull Avenue. Does that mean anything to anybody? Trumbull Avenue?
Trumbull, yeah, Trumbull.
Yeah, that's where she lived. So that just came back to me. And for one summer, I thought I was going to be going to, I think, Northern, because my mom got married and moved to Flint, and I was in Alabama, where I was in my athletic and academic career, and she made me go up for the summer, and then I participated in a baseball league. I played all sports in high school, and then we moved. She let me go back to Alabama and complete my high school career, which worked out pretty well for me. So I'm familiar. I lived in Flint for 2.5, 3 months. And I visited Flint often over the 4 or 5 years that actually over 8 years that my mother lived there. So she worked at the hospital. She was a nurse, and obviously I know as a automobile factory town with Buick and all the other things there. So I'm very, very familiar. And one thing I do remember as a kid, softball was really, really cool with the older people playing in the softball leagues. I don't know if that still occurs, but I still have memories of that. But Jay,
Yeah.
talking about what you're doing is just phenomenal. I've been on 2 calls today, and I have the opportunity to talk to adults as well as kids about what is success and what are those characteristics. And I'm going to talk about 6 of them, Jay, real quickly, that I think you emulate. And Norm, there's no doubt of the role that you're playing, definitely when I get to that one on leadership. And the first one, those interpersonal skills. And that's that ability to have the emotional intelligence, that ability to go into a room and relate to people, being curious, being a continuous learner. And I know these are things that you're teaching those kids because you've done it yourself. The second one, those communication skills are critical. And Jay, I break them down to the people I talk to in 4 areas. Number one, you're speaking. You want to make sure you stand tall, you speak, and you command the audience. Number 2 is writing. Those kids have to learn to write. AI is great, but you still got to know how to control the AI and write. Number three, and this is one my mother would tell me all the time, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in that importance. Listening, critical. And the third one, fourth one at least, is body language, being aware of what you project with your body language from face to head to crossing your legs or arms, and being ability to read others' body language. That is critical. The next one, analytical skills, making sure that you understand that math and science and understand both on a quantitative as well as a qualitative basis. How do you analyze to make decisions? Leadership, critical. Simply stated, it's the ability to influence a group to accomplish a common goal. And both of you gentlemen did it on the sports field, and then you brought it back out into the community and you're giving back with it. Leadership is critical to success. And here's another one that's important, and that is the ability to take risk, being entrepreneurial, creating things. And I got to tell you, there's no doubt that Norm, your entrepreneurship resulted in us all being here today. You had a vision for something, you went out, you put action together and made it happen. And then last but not least is this thing we call passion, having passion for what you do. And all of us as athletes, we know the two-a-days in the summer, the fourth quarter, when it's down and dirty and you got to go do it. You got to have passion, you have that grit and got to go do it. So Jay, you are the epitome of another profession that I think is so underappreciated in our nation, and that's our teachers. They
Exactly.
are so underappreciated. And what you're doing is supplementing what they're getting in the classroom. And if I remember Flint and you're doing this, there's some tough areas. There's some kids that don't have the ability to get things done with a mom and a dad in the house, and having that structure and having something to look forward to after school. For me, it was sports. Okay. Everybody can't play sports. Okay. Even though the ladies can play some now, they're not enough positions on the team. So everyone has to do something, And as that old saying goes, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. So thank you for what you're doing, Jay.
You could go on and on and on at Norm's Barbershop about Flint athletes, but let's talk about Leon Burton. I have a chapter in The Right Thing to Do about Leon Burton. He was a great Flint football and track athlete, one of the fastest track athletes in the nation. He was committed to Michigan State. He survived. He was a passenger in a car accident. He was almost killed. Took him a couple years to heal. And when he did, by then, Dan Devine, one of Duffy's assistant coaches, had moved on to Arizona State, and he was the head coach. And the thing about Duffy's assistant coaches, when they became head coaches, is they all followed Duffy's blueprint of ignoring quota limitations on black athletes. So Bert Smith, the coach at Flint Northern for Norm and Leon Burton, who had moved on to Michigan State by then, he told Dan Devine, you should take Leon Burton. He's healthy. And then Leon was the first great black star at Arizona State as a halfback. Tell us about Leon Burton, Norm.
Well, this is a picture of Leon at Arizona State. Leon, during our time, was probably he was a born speedster. He was fast. Matter of fact, he ran the 180-yard low hurdles. He was 4 hurdles ahead of everybody and ran the 4th fastest time in the nation. Leon was quite an athlete. He was quite an athlete. And he led the nation in rushing from Arizona State.
Without Norm, I wouldn't have that chapter about Dan Devine and how he was such a leader, following Duffy's blueprint. Segregation in the 1950s, of course, and Arizona State was in what was called the Border Conference, and Norm.
Borderline conference.
Yeah. Norm, I think you were a freshman at the time.
Right.
And Arizona State went to play Hardin-Simmons in West Texas, which at the time was a Division I football program. And the word back in those days was that when schools like Arizona State with a black player came to Hardin-Simmons, they crossed into Texas, they couldn't stay at the hotel or eat at the restaurant with the team. And Dan Devine said, if my black players, which included Leon Burton, can't stay in the same hotel, can't eat in the restaurant. We're getting back on the bus and going back home. And keep in mind, that's a 12-hour bus ride. And Hardin Simmons back down. So that's another great story about Dan Devine and Michigan State's legacy through Duffy Daugherty. What do you remember about that, Norm?
Well, I can remember that when we played. See, I didn't play on the varsity, but when we played Hardin Simmons, and that's a true story that you told. He told him, he said, he said, we won't play, we won't stay at the hotel at all. And they resolved that problem back in those days, okay? And that was saying a whole lot back in those days.
Jay, your thoughts on all these great Flint legends from the 50s and what Dan Devine and Duffy Daugherty were doing back in those days ahead of everybody else?
So I actually have heard some of these stories. I talked to Hank Bulla before he passed, and he kind of gave me some insight on Duffy and the things that he were doing, especially for black people, and just kind of gave me the history of it. And even so I didn't even know that Don Coleman was from Flint. And he is one of the very few people that have their number retired here. No one has worn number 78 in I don't know how long. So his number has been
That's right.
retired for quite a long time. So I didn't even know that he was from Flint. But
Yeah, he's from Flint Central.
and no, and so for me, I like hearing things like that because I'm always anybody that I know from my city that's doing anything, I'm always happy for and supportive of because I know what they had to endure or go through to get to that point. So, even kids nowadays who are, venturing off into high school and college and doing other things, I'm happy for anybody that comes from my city that's doing anything positive.
Yeah.
Well, Jay, let me say this to you. When I looked at you the other night when they had the press conference, big man. But see, Leroy Bowling was about 5'9" and about 180 pounds. And when he got to Michigan State, they had what you call the pony backfield. Tom Musick was the quarterback and Billy Wells. And Leroy Bowling is about as rough as they come. I don't care what size you said he was, but he was just rough. They call it the pony backfield. And then that pony backfield and that it was named after Brigham Mum. Duffy Daugherty came after Brigham Mum.
Yeah.
They had the pony backfield and if you come from Flint, you had to made a good stop.
Yeah. Herman, your thoughts on these great 1950s Flint athletes and the roads they helped clear with the help of Duffy Daugherty and Dan Devine?
Well, there's no doubt, and Tom, you've written about it. My story, particularly in a town in Alabama, and you gentlemen certainly were in somewhat of an inner city situation, but in these smaller towns in Alabama and Texas and Florida, Friday Night Lights is real. I mean, it becomes the focus of the entire community. And having, I was, after you, Jay, but before after you, I'm sorry, Norm, but Jay, what year did you finish at Michigan State?
95.
You're a youngster, if you can imagine. In 70, and of course, Norm's going to call us all a youngster. By the way, I just turned 70 last week, gentlemen. So I'm getting there. But being in that situation is something. Tom did a story on me, and I had not really even thought about it. And he interviewed my high school coach, and he asked him. He said, "How was it you're starting Herman as quarterback?" And he said, "I caught some crap for it." And this is where one of the things that Jesse Jackson said, right? That if one of the great things, the reason we have so many Blacks successful in athletics is it's a level playing field. It's truly about the ability to go out and compete. And at the same time, that important position of quarterback, because everybody in the town, you're on the radio, you're doing everything in this little small bowl. It's a small bowl, but it's a big thing. And I have met so many people, and the reason I do this, I'm a very busy guy. But the reason I do this when Tom calls is the opportunity to meet gentlemen like both of you and Norm particularly, someone that actually set the trail. So myself, okay, as well as Jay and so many others, we stand on your shoulders. Because
That's
if you
right.
had not done what you did and what I thought I had some tough times, okay, your times undoubtedly were a lot tougher than yours. Jay, you think you had some tough times. My
Yeah.
times were tougher than yours. And we
Yeah.
all stand on and we all must continue to take it to the next level.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. And can I say that just to piggyback on what you were saying, that's why I respected those who came before me because I feel like my generation is the last one that heard the stories about how the South was and how growing up during those times was, and that's why we kind of respected the history and clung on to the history because we always heard those stories. So, Mr. Bryan, I can't even imagine what it was like for you dealing with what you had to deal with just to, do to play a kid's game and to go through all of the things that you had to go through. And also you, sir, being in Alabama, my whole family is from Alabama. So from Greensboro, Alabama. So I can only imagine what that was like. So the battles that you all fought and even with dealing with kids, what I tell kids all the time is the battle you never expect the battles that you fight to kind of benefit you. You always know that it's for the ones that's coming behind you, and that's a selfless act that many people can't do, and you all bear the brunt of that through what you all went through. So I just want to pay respect for you all for the things that you did and laying the groundwork for guys like me.
Yeah. And Jay, I should have added this earlier. Jay is a weekly guest on the Drive with Jack Friday afternoons at the Lansing's best sports radio show. I always make sure I get a listen to the segment either live or on tape, but Jay always has good insight. Yeah, getting back to that theme, in 2013, South Florida played at Michigan State, and South Florida's head coach at the time was Willie Taggart. And I interviewed him. Willie's a black coach, head coach, and was later head coach at Oregon and Florida State. And Willie told me, I interviewed him before the game, and Willie told me that he tells his kids he considered Michigan State, Spartan Stadium, hallowed ground because he knew the story of the Biggie Munn and Duffy Doherty teams. And just like what Herman and Jay said, he told his kids, yeah, you have it tough at times dealing with the race, but you don't know what it was like for the guys who cleared the road in this stadium that you're going to play in. Let's hit on Art Johnson. Got one more guy in Norm's barber chair here. Art Johnson, as Norm mentioned earlier, played at Michigan State. His son Mark Ingram played at Michigan State.
His
No.
grandson.
Well, his father Mark. Mark. There's two Marks.
Yeah, right. Mark
Yeah,
Senior and Mark the second. Right.
yeah.
You're right.
Art Johnson played at Michigan State. Mark Ingram Senior played at
You're right.
Michigan
You're
State in
right.
the
You're right.
NFL, and then Mark Ingram the second played at Alabama in the NFL. The other thing I want to mention about Art Johnson is he played in the late 50s, and that was when Ernest Green of the Little Rock Nine in Arkansas came to Michigan State. So he came from the South to a completely different atmosphere in Michigan State. And the football and Ernest Green, Herman was on a past podcast with me with Ernest Green talking about his experience at Michigan State as a civil rights pioneer. And Ernest talked about how football players like Art Johnson and Herb Adderley helped him adjust to a different lifestyle in the North because it was different in the South from when you had to be so submissive to white society. Tell us about what a great athlete Art Johnson was, Norm.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, we had a coach in track by the name of Bill Cave, and Bill Cave took 8 of his runners from his track team down to Mansville, Ohio, and took a third place with 4 athletes. And we had a lot of talent back in those days. My father grew up on a farm. He didn't know what running was. But I'm going to show you a picture of the 12 ball players that played in Super Bowls, if you can see it. And 3 of those players came from Southwestern: Reggie Williams, Ricky Patton, and Brian Carpenter. And Northwestern had two, Mark Ingram Sr. and Andre Rison. Beecher had two, Carl Banks and Lonnie Young. Powers High School had one, Todd Light. And Flint Central High School had one, Andre Weathers. But these are the 12 ball players that played and played at Super Bowls. Now they belong in somebody's Hall of Fame. You don't tell me they belong in somebody's Hall of Fame.
Well, let's move on to the more modern Flint legends. Put Jay as the head barber and in the chair. Jay, tell us about Michigan State's 2000 national championship team, but also 3 straight Final Four teams. They were known as the Flintstones. Antonio Smith was the foundation. He was a year ahead of Mateen Cleaves and Morris Peterson, and then Charlie Bell another year behind him. But national title, 3 straight Final Fours, and the Flintstones got a national recognition. Talk about those days, Jay.
Yeah, that was kind of like the turning point that made Michigan State, I feel like, popular, because before that, we were kind of like the frowned upon school. But once those guys got here and did that, this place became a destination. And I think that, that kind of what started, and 20-some years later, it's still the same thing. People still love them around here, love what they did, and still hang it. I mean, that's the last time that a Big Ten school has actually won a national championship in basketball. So,
Well, I think Flint is coming back. I think Flint is coming back. And the reason I say Flint is coming back, see, when we played ball, my father didn't know nothing about football. He never went to a football game until we moved to Flint, okay? And the bottom line is this, is that we got to teach our athletes there's more to it than just playing ball. You got to start giving back. We got to give back, just like Green, like you, what you're doing. We got to give back. Not only got to give back to help these kids in terms of their skills, but you got to give back financially too. We got to keep this thing going.
Yeah.
Well, talking about, I agree, and can I say that? So I've had this conversation with a few people, and I have always said that I feel like the declining thing in Flint happened because the most valuable asset that I feel like we had when I was coming up was the community school director, because at every school, that was the person who created a safe space for kids in the neighborhood, and that was who cultivated all of the talent in the neighborhood, because they were guys who really cared.
You're right. You're right. You're certainly right. I agree with you on that, and we got to go back to that.
No, I agree, and I think that having them kind of people in the community that people can look up to and go to, because all of those guys, played sports, and they had stories that they shared with, because I grew up in the Garfield neighborhood where we had Mr. Watkins, who was a great football player at Fisk University when he was younger. So he had stories, and he was able to help us and put us in the situation, because we didn't have like trainers and things like they do now. But we always had people like them that cared, that took the time to show us the right way to do things, and not only just sports, but also outside of sports.
But see, I agree with you 100%. But what I'm saying is that we've got to make this thing to where you got these young guys set it up to where they can become community school directors. See, years ago, Frank Manley Sr. was the superintendent of the public schools. So Frank Manley and C.S. Mott was bosom buddies. So whatever Manley wanted for the school system, Mott got it for him. And we got to make sure we go back to where we were. That's all we got to do. We've made the blueprint. The blueprint is there.
I agree. But the one thing that I've learned, Mr. Bryant, is people giving back and helping. That's something that you gotta want to do, and what I've experienced is either you are that person or you not. And so I think that that's kind of where the barrier comes in. At is, if you expecting somebody to help, and so I guess the other thing is knowing how to do this, because like I know, growing up in our communities, we are behind in a lot of things, and we often don't learn things until we get a lot older through life experience, because we don't have people to teach us that, because the people who are teaching us, they didn't have that experience.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you 100%.
We're talking about giving back. Let's jump ahead to Robert Smith, great Michigan State defensive end, played in the NFL, brother of Antonio Smith. And when Norm got behind refurbishing Atwood Stadium, which had fallen into disrepair, Atwood Stadium was just a center for so many great Flint sports events, and they would be packed for football games. And Robert Smith came through with a check for you, right, Norm, to
That's
get a
right.
lot of the work done. Talk about
Refurbish the press box.
yeah, talk about Atwood Stadium being refurbished and the support you got from guys like Robert Smith.
Robert, his name is right up the Robert Smith press box. And it means a lot. And I'm gonna tell you who else done a lot for us. He's not inducted yet, but he soon will be inducted, and that's Mark Ingram II. Matter of fact, we put on a golf program every year, and he sponsored that for us. Okay, and we raise money to put back into that. And we're doing some things right now in Flint that's gonna help Flint get back. Burston Fieldhouse was one of the areas where most of the athletes come out of Burston Fieldhouse on the north end of town. So they're refurbishing Burston. They putting a $36 million program into Burston Fieldhouse right now.
Yeah.
And what we're gonna try to do is put a baseball field down there and a football diamond down there.
Yeah, that's a great basketball
Well,
place for people who don't know. There's a lot of great pickup basketball there. Let's talk
no,
about Herb
I grew up
Washington.
around there, so no, I know it. That's going to be huge. And I heard somebody speak about softball. Sunday softball down at Burston was legendary. Like people
It
used to
was.
really look forward to that. So I'm hoping that they can even get back to that down there once they're finished.
Okay, let's talk about Herb Washington, Michigan State NCAA champion in track and field. Interesting thing about Herb was he was fourth in the 100 meters Olympic trials for the 1972 Olympics. Only the top three go, of course. If he had made that top three, if you remember your 1972 Olympics history, the sprinters misread the schedule or they had it read to them wrong, and they were late for their races and didn't get a chance to warm up and didn't perform well. Well, Herb's a Michigan State guy. He would have got that schedule straightened out and been there on time and ready to go against the Russians. But anyways, tell us about, and then Herb Washington, of course, went on and Charlie Finley of the Oakland A's made him the designated base stealer. So he has a World Series ring with the Oakland A's from the 74 season. Norm or Jay, tell us about Herb Washington, what you remember about him.
Herb is a great person. I talked to Herb quite a bit. And Herb will tell you right now, he's a Flintstone. And anything that happens in Flint, you don't have to worry about Herb. He'll be there. Okay. He was raised up on Carden Street. Matter of fact, Herb Washington and William Wallace went to Flint Northern together, and then they changed the boundaries where Herb had to go to Flint Central, and they were running against each other. Two of the fastest people in Flint run against each other.
Yeah.
But Herb Washington will tell you right now, he's a Flintstone, and anything Flint has on. Anytime I call Herb and talk to him, he'll tell you in a minute, Mr. Bryan, I'm a Flintstone.
All right.
And he means it. He means it.
Jay, let's talk about Carl Banks. Of course, great Michigan State All-American, played on the New York Giants Super Bowl teams with Lawrence Taylor. He had a long enough and great enough NFL career. You want to jump in here, Herman, and talk about Carl Banks?
Well, you talk about athleticism and versatility. I think that's what Carl represented. And as we said earlier, Jay, the great things you did part of it on natural ability. However, people like Carl, as you know, they do it on grit and determination. And when you have that, by the way, I played football at West Point for 2 years until my abilities didn't keep up with what the coaches wanted. Okay. And one of the things I think we all learn from athletics is that ability to go when the going gets tough. And I think in terms of Carl and his ability and the things that he did, that epitomizes, Jay, what you're trying to teach these young kids today, that it's going to be tough. It's not all going to be glory. And you know this yourself, Jay, it's not what you do on the court or on the field. It's what did you do those hundreds of hours for every, minute of glory that you had on the field and what you had to put into it. And great athletes understand that. And when you're able to transition that into your career life, that's where the real lessons come.
Okay, and another great Flint legend, Andre Rison, Flint Northwestern for the Spartans, 12 NFL seasons, Super Bowl champion, pretty flamboyant career, of course, in the NFL.
Andre. You guys know him personally? Norm?
Yeah, Jay.
Yeah, I know Andre. Matter of fact, I went to school with his uncle Mose.
Yeah.
And his uncle Mose had been things that had been opened up back then. He probably been a standout.
Was he also a character?
Yes, he was a character. Yeah, he was a character. He sure was. Yeah, Mose. Yeah, me and Mose, we went way back. We played intramural ball together, and you couldn't beat Mose. You couldn't beat him because one way or the other, he's gonna beat you one way or the other. Even if he had to cheat a little bit, he's gonna beat you.
And Jay, talk about Carl Banks and Andre Rison. You would have been in, I guess, middle school for Carl, and then high school when Andre was playing.
But one good thing, what really makes me feel good, what really makes me feel good is that Carl Banks was inducted into the Hall of Fame with his high school coach. And boy, I tell you, that really made me feel good. And they felt good too, going in together.
Go ahead, Jay.
No, Beecher is a community. So Carl Banks, again, was somebody who, when he was in college, Michigan State just wasn't on TV like that. So he was someone, again, who I heard stories about, but never really got the chance to see until he got to the NFL, because I didn't really go to Beecher games like that. But once he got in the NFL, and again, he's the one that did things not only on the field but off the field, which carried over into Flint, which I always think is huge. Andre Rison Andre Rison is probably the best athlete from Flint that I saw with my own eyes.
Yeah. Andre was not only
just
a good
pure athlete.
Yeah, he was a great long jumper. I think he competed in track for the Spartans and
So
played briefly for the basketball team. Yeah.
No, he started on the basketball team as a point guard. I think he was all Big Ten in the long jump.
Yeah.
And we know what he did in football. So I think that he is probably the best athlete from Flint that I've ever seen with my own eyes. He is who he is as a person, but we love him because he is who he is. So
but you know one thing, let me say this.
Uh-huh.
Let me just say this. Andre Rison was one of the greatest athletes that I've seen come out of Flint. It's only one other athlete I think was better than Andre, and that was Bill Hamilton. And that was back in the 40s. Wow. And let me tell you, Andre Rison was a tremendous athlete.
Yeah.
All around. But he came from an athletic family. His family was athletic.
Yeah.
His uncle Mose was something else, bro.
Okay. Well, I saved this guy for last because he's not only a great Michigan State Spartan from Flint Beecher, but he's also done so much for kids as a high school coach, and now he's a Michigan State assistant coach. So Norm and Jay and Herman, you can all comment on him. Courtney Hawkins, great wide receiver for the Spartans, played in the NFL with the Steelers. After his playing days, he was the coach and athletic director at Flint Beecher, and he was a taskmaster. He made sure those kids were going to school and study hall. And he did that for about 10, 12 years, I think. And then when Mel Tucker took over, he got Courtney to join the staff. And Courtney was retained by both Jonathan Smith and now by Pat Fitzgerald. They were smart enough not to let him get away. All three of you, Norm, you go first. Talk about Courtney Hawkins, both on and off the field.
Well, Courtney is a great person. You see, I have 4 daughters, And Courtney went with one of my daughters. So I know Courtney off the fence. He is a great person. He comes from a good family. Courtney is just good people all the way around. And I know Courtney very well. I know him very well, very well. And I can talk to Courtney anytime. And just like I say, I knew him very well off the field and on the field. Very athletically inclined. Very, very good. Very good. Very good. Did a good job for Beecher. Did a wonderful job for Beecher. And all I have to say is this, is that when you say Courtney Hawkins around me, then that means that he's a good person. I enjoy him very well in my presence. He's very well renowned in my presence. Okay.
Jay, were you a freshman when Courtney was a senior
No, he
at
is
at
2
Michigan State?
years ahead of me.
Oh, he's 2 years ahead of
So
you.
I played
Okay.
with him here for 2. Yes, and the one thing, just to piggyback on what Mr. Bryan said, as far as the person that he is, and I've told Courtney this several times. The one thing that I always respected is the fact that he went back to his high school and he didn't have to. You know, he had a 9-year career in the NFL, and he could have. You know, Courtney is a very smart person, and I know he did well with his money, like is not wasting it and doing great things. So the fact that he was able to go back to his high school and he didn't have to always made me respect him even more. And the stuff that he put in place and the way that he showed that he cared about his community was what always stood out to me. And it has nothing to do with what he did on the field or on the court.
Yeah. And that was
I
a
agree
great,
with you on that. I agree with you on that. Off the field, he was just as good. I respect him just as much off the field as I do on the field. He's a great person. Great person to know, great person to talk to.
Herman, your
Yes.
thoughts?
Well, I don't think I can add anything to their first hand knowledge. And I got to tell you, he had to be a pretty good guy if Norm let him date his daughter. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up here, and part of the tragedy of the Rust Belt in the Midwest is that General Motors pulled out of Flint. And in Jay's time and before then, they had 5 high schools, all Class A high schools. They were all state title contenders. And then the job market was killed by Flint. General Motors closing factories and shipping them down to Mexico. And that was the theme of the movie Roger and Me, about how it was devastating to the city. Any final thoughts? Let's see. We lost Norm here for a second. Jay, you want to talk about Flint, the good old days, and how the city continues to keep trying to fight back?
No, I think in my mind it will never be like it was, but I think that it's some things that are salvageable. But I just remember times where you know, I never got to experience like the Turkey Day game, but I heard stories about it. I did play in some northern central games that were historic, but again, I just don't think that it'll ever be like it was, because when it was great, it was we were just all doing what we love, and now everything is so transactional and about money. It just don't feel like that true passion will ever be there again. Hopefully it can. I just don't see it, and I just cling on to the memories that I have of the Flint that I knew growing up.
Yeah. And there's Norm. Norm, we lost you for a second. Your final comments on how Flint was once a thriving factory city. Back in those days, they talked about Detroit auto industry as what the Silicon Valley of the time. And with Flint is encompassed in that area. Talk about how great the area was, and how you guys are doing the best you can since General Motors pulled out.
Well, the thing about it, I say this, is that the only way Flint is going to really get back to where it was is jobs. We got to bring some jobs back here to Flint. We had a great thing going there because my father and people from his generation probably came to Flint if it wasn't for jobs.
You came from Arkansas, right?
Came from Little Rock, Arkansas. My mother graduated from Dunbar High School in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1931. But we come from Arkansas to get a better job.
Yeah. like a lot of African Americans throughout the Midwest and the North. Herman, I didn't know today that you had the chance to be a Flintstone.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit.
Kind of bring us home on all this.
Well, I also a name that some of you may know, Matt Collier, who used to be your mayor. I don't know
Yeah,
if that.
Matt Collier. I
Yeah,
remember
well,
Matt.
he was a plebe in my squad at West Point. Very good
Ah,
hockey player. Played hockey at West Point and got out of the army, came back. He was mayor for a little while. I've done a couple of business deals with him, and he's run for Congress at least once, and maybe thinking about it again. So my connections to Flint, from my mom to Matt, to certainly keeping an eye on you guys now and the great athletes that have come through there. And look, this again, I'm going to beat a dead drum, is the importance of sports and how it gives us all the opportunity to compete on a level playing field. And how is it that we take the lessons that we learn in sports to include the failures and turn that into something that makes our life more enjoyable? So I'm certainly privileged to have this opportunity to spend the afternoon with both of you gentlemen, and I wish you continued success. And Norm, if I come up there, I mean, can you do something to this hair? Can you make me look like I'm not 70?
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. One thing about it, I don't forget my trade, man. I
So
don't forget my trade.
you're not gonna slip and give me a mohawk, are you?
No, 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 no. I'm from the old school. I'm old school.
yeah.
So are you still cutting
I
hair now, Norm? You
no,
still?
I'm not. No, I don't cut hair. I cut my own hair. I don't cut nobody else's hair. I cut my own. I kept my tools. The guy said, "Why don't you come by the barber shop?" I say, "Well, that's when I kept my tools, man."
But Herman, the shop is still open. It's still called Bryant's what?
Brian's
Bryant's.
historical Brian's barber shop.
Yeah, it's still
I,
open, and the deal
I,
Norm made with the guys who bought it from him is he gets free haircuts for the rest of his life.
yeah, yeah, that ain't too bad. But the thing that I'm interested in right now is at one time Flint only had one high school, Flint Central. Then we went all the way to five high schools, four high schools from the city, and and one Catholic high school. What I'd like to see happen is this. Here's what I'd like to see happen. Really, what I'd like to see happen. We got one public high school and we got one Catholic high school. It would be nice if we could have the Catholic play against the city high school and bring that back to Southwestern. I mean, bring it back to Edward Stadium. I would like to see that happen. I really would. You got to be competitive.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's it for the end game. Share this episode with your friends about a great American city, Flint, and the long legacy of the Flintstones at Michigan State University. Thanks for watching.